hope took a lot of different forms in that research process. When we first started out, we didn't know if we would find any information. So before we even set foot in the county archives, we were hopeful that we would find things, and then over time it generated a lot of information. I know from the students that one of the things that they always talked about was that they hoped that they could find a way to impact one person, that they could find information in the present day about one of their ancestors. So there was always that goal that even if one family could find information about somebody that they were descended from, somebody that lived in the 1840s or 1850s, and offer up new information about that individual's life, that would be a success of the project. And President Maxey in 2019 set a number of different goals. His idea was to not just over the long term create a public memorial, but also to instigate and support deeper research to better understand the history of slavery at Roanoke College. At that time in 2019, there was really very little known about the history of slavery at Roanoke College. So we knew, just sort of broadly speaking, given the fact that Roanoke College had always been in the state of Virginia, that it was in a part of Virginia where a third of the population had been enslaved, that there must have been a historic overlap. But the college records themselves didn't really offer any great level of detail about the histories of slavery. Then President Maxey asked me to start a research project, which I called the Genealogy of Slavery Research, to document the genealogy and offer historic information about the descendants of enslaved communities that were in this region, but also as a way to begin to think about the genealogy and identity of the school itself, and to say, if our earlier histories of an institution included the widespread use of enslaved labor, if it included receipt of investment income from enslavers who gave their money to the institution, that we really had to rethink how our contemporary identity was situated within a longer institutional history. There are enormous voids for individuals that want to carry out family genealogical research. So if anybody that's watching this has ever done family history research, you might utilize a website like Ancestry.com, which would, for most white Americans in particular, would have an abundance of information going back over really long periods of time. For a lot of African Americans who are doing family history research, there aren't good records that exist on a website like Ancestry from the period before 1870. And that's because if their family member had been enslaved, federal census records, for example, only documented enslaved individuals with their age and their sex, not by their name or any other information about them that would really allow somebody to truly clarify who their ancestor was. So the work that we've been doing in the production of this database has really been to close some of those gaps, to make available in a publicly available, user-friendly format information that exists in local records, but that's otherwise really hard to obtain. So we worked over 4 years to produce Authors and Architects, which is the memorial standing behind me, created by the artist Sandy Williams IV. One of the things that I really like about the way that Sandy conceptualized the design of this piece is that the books that are appearing here on the actual facets of the memorial, they move, they slide in and out. They're not just one steady surface. And it also encourages people that are visiting the memorial to feel lots of things at once. So there's not a single emotion. When Sandy Williams IV designed Authors and Architects, they really wanted to have an interplay and sort of a conversation with the entire campus, but also with Biddle Hall, which sort of shares a visual landscape. So the sawtooth pattern that is part of the front edges of Biddle Hall about halfway up, it's a distinctive brick pattern where the bricks move in and out and create a sawtooth pattern. So one of the things that Professor Williams was trying to achieve with the book movement was a similar interplay of movement and of the way that the bricks move through space. The alignment of the base for Authors and Architects shares the same alignment of Biddle Hall too, so they're facing in the same cardinal direction. And just as importantly, they both look out on the oldest part of the college campus, which is the front quad. The front quad, which they both have a distinct interplay with, was where enslaved laborers and brick masons would have hand dug clay and soiled and then fired bricks that became the later college buildings. I think the most important thing is that now that this memorial is here, we want people to come visit it. And you can visit it physically. You can contact me if you want a behind-the-scenes tour of the memorial, but also to visit the way that we exist digitally. So we have the database and website where there's information both about the memorial, but more importantly about the individuals who are portrayed on it. But I'd also encourage people throughout the state of Virginia to take up an interest in your local historic sources. But there are these historic ties that bring us together. So it's always about thinking how we exist in relationship to one another across the Commonwealth of Virginia.